you really let the pilot just come in and fly and just do their thing, look cool. And it just reminds me like the U-2, like as a U-2 pilot, I come in, I look cool, pressure suit and everything. But there's all these people behind me, on the side of me, in front of me that are doing all these wonderful things so I can look cool. And that's how I look at the schedules and dispatchers.
Hello and welcome to the LD Aviation Podcast. Today we get a chance to speak with Merryl Tengesdal, who you all probably know from our last S&D conference that we had back in, I think it was March. She was the one of the speakers there. So she is also most known for being the first and only African American to fly the U-2 aircraft. And she's held multiple leadership roles along her career, which we're going to hear about later on. She's also a prolific speaker, a mom, and a wife. So I'm so excited to speak with you, Merryl. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. And Mojo is incredibly happy.
So cute. So I know you guys can't see this, but Mojo is her cat and is sitting on her lap and is so cute. He's like dancing right now. So very cute. He's very fuzzy. Awesome. So Merryl, I ask this to most people that I speak with, but I'm always curious, how did you even get into aviation?
Yeah, so man, it started when I was 7. I always say I watched too much science fiction. Star Trek was my choice, and yes, and the big thing was to boldly go where no one has gone before. And I took that mantra and embodied that from the words of Captain Kirk. And I look at life, I said I just wanted to be an astronaut and just explore. And so at that point I decided that to do that, part of it is going to have to be flying, whether it was commercial or military. I had to do a couple of other things, do well in math and science. And then I just started on this journey and looked at life as everything that I did in life was a skill set that I was going to do well in so I could put in my tool belt.
So when you went through college, high school and college, were you participating in aviation like events, or did you learn to fly? When did you start to learn to fly?
Yeah, so I was a kid from the Bronx, so money is not something that was at our disposal. Single parent household, born and raised in Co-op City. So I just stayed with STEM programs. So I did, during my high school years especially, I did a lot of science, at that time, science technology programs. I went to the University of Binghamton, SUNY Binghamton up in New York, and did a summer with them. And then I was invited back the following year to do some research in electrical engineering with a professor. And so that kind of led me down the path of, when I graduated high school, to get a degree in engineering, in particular electrical engineering. I was looking at aerospace and aeronautical, but I couldn't choose between the two because I liked them both and I had more familiarity with electrical engineering. So I decided to do that instead. And get that degree. So that's what I decided to major in. And so, so I did not start, the school I went to was the University of New Haven. And the reason why is because they had a good engineering program. They also had aviation business, and the adjacent airport, Tweed Airport, had a program that you could get your private pilot's license. But I never had the money to do it, but I had friends that were in the program that flew. So my first flight, my first small plane, general aviation flight, was with one of my buddies who was getting his degree. He actually flies, I don't want to misspeak, but I think he flies for United now. He's a captain. He's been flying for many years. I have it on my Instagram file. And him and I have been friends forever, since the early 1990s. So he took me on my first flight in a Cessna 152, and it didn't feel that good. It was a hot day. If you can figure out, Connecticut, it was a hot, late spring time. Oh, and I was a little nauseous, and I'm like,
there's no air conditioning, probably.
No air conditioning, anything. And in my mind, I was like, man, I need to, hopefully this is not how flying is. So So when I went to the military, flying military aircraft, when you start out the T-34, that's definitely a much better experience. There's a little bit of air. It was a little nicer.
We probably can get up a little higher.
A little higher, a little more performance, a little faster.
So when you graduated college. I'm not really familiar with how the military works, but I believe you went in as an officer?
I did. So to be a pilot in the Navy, Air Force, Coast Guards, all those, with the exception of the Army, you could do the warrant officer program. You need a 4-year degree. So the 4-year degree, because I did electrical engineering, I thought that would make my resume look better. I didn't want to take, firstly, I'm not into the liberal arts stuff. I was more into the sciences. So, but I knew if I was going to apply through the military that it would make just make me stand out a little bit more, because not a lot of females at that time were getting engineering degrees. So decided, I did that. So once I graduated from college, I did ROTC for 2 years, and I did not complete. I did Air Force ROTC actually, and it wasn't my jam, to be honest. So I stopped after 2 years. Once I got my degree, I pursued back in New York, trying to talk to a recruiter from the Air Force, the Navy, in particular the Navy, because I wanted to join the Navy. I figured out at that point I wanted to fly off of boats. So it was kind of I didn't realize that there was a difference between the recruiters that you see in like a little strip mall, as opposed to an officer recruiting district, which is in different places. So I was dating a guy at the time that introduced me to a officer recruiter in San Diego. So I took a 5-day bus trip out to San Diego to meet this recruiter, take the test, and I passed the test. And then they put in a package for me for officer candidate school for the Navy. And then about 6 months later, I got picked up.
Very cool. Yeah, I did not know that process at all. So you need a 4-year degree, and you need to aim for those certain locations that have the officer program, and go do a test and apply that way. Okay.
Yes. So those are the people who they call us the 90-day wonders, the people who go to officer candidate school, or in the Air Force side, go to officer training school, I believe, OTS. The warrant officer program for the Army, what I did, I took the ASVAB coming out of college, so it was relatively easy. And then I was close to going to the Army. I was going to swear in and do the Army warrant officer program. And then this opportunity came to go out to San Diego. So I was like, the recruiter was a little disappointed. I said, yeah, the Navy's calling me.
That was your first choice. Yeah. And 5 days on a bus, that was, I've done a few Greyhound rides in my lifetime. That's rough.
Yeah, I don't recommend that for any young person. My mom gave me the option that she was going to buy a plane ticket for me, but I'm a college graduate. I'm a grown A woman, so I wanted to pay my way and do what I needed to do. So I took the bus trip, but I think now in 2024, no, don't take a bus, folks. Don't do it. It's sketchy.
It sure is. I think it's been a few years since a few decades probably since I did it, but yeah, it was kind of sketchy then too.
It was. There's some seedy people.
Yeah, there sure are. So super interesting. So you said it took about 90 days before they called you, or was it 6 months?
It was about 6 months. Once I left San Diego, I stayed there for a couple of months. The guy I was dating at the time was stationed at Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, which is in the middle of nowhere. So I was waiting for him to get out. He was leaving. He was separating from he was a corpsman, a Navy corpsman working with the Marine Corps. So I was waiting for him to separate. And then we were going to drive back across country. So in the meantime, I took a job working on the base at Godfather's Pizza. I was pizza deliverer.
Really? All right.
Yeah. And I was so annoying, because if I had to deliver pizza like to the flight line, oh man, I would just be like, I would see one of the maintenance guys. I'm like, yo, can you show me the aircraft? let me check out the aircraft. Let me go in there. And they'd be like, yeah, okay. And then we would check out the aircraft. They would show me, they had Harriers out there at the time. So I would like, just the smell, be on the flight line, doing all that stuff. Like it just, man, it just pumped me up. I was like, man, I'm going to get accepted into the Navy. I'm not going to fly this type of aircraft, but let's go. Like I get
so
stoked.
Cool. So cool. Yeah.
Little known fact. Yeah, I was a pizza deliverer for Godfather's Pizza.
That was probably a great experience, actually, delivering pizza. One, you got a chance to see all the airplanes. But two, I mean, having some of those jobs really later on in life reminds you perhaps how good you have it, because now you're not delivering pizzas anymore.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, out of college with a degree in engineering, and I'm pizza deliverer, but I knew for me, it was short term. Like, I'm not getting in engineering. I'm going to be in Arizona. And I stayed in this place in Arizona called, actually, I lived in California because it was right on the border. So I lived in, those who may know, Felicity, California. This man built a pyramid out there. It's a very strange area, but that's where I lived, in Felicity, California. And yeah, you get an appreciation. I was working. I was, hanging out with my boyfriend at the time, and knowing that this was just a short, pause as I'm trying to get my life together, because I'm moving the ball forward down the field to get into the military. I just have to wait. So at this time, I'm just about accumulating money, and because money's good, and investing money or doing what I need to do and saving for it. My mom taught me well.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. So you're pizza delivering now. They call you from the Navy and you're like, okay, this is awesome. I'd love to hear kind of how did you join the Navy? And then ultimately, how did you even get to be a candidate to fly the U-2 aircraft? Right.
So if you're a direct commission going into OCS, you go in with a billet. That was one of the things I didn't like about ROTC. ROTC, you compete for billets, and you actually sign before you know what you're going to get. And I was like, no, I don't. I really don't want to do that. I want to be in a position where if I go in the military, I know what I'm going to do. And so the direct commissioning route was something that was more appealing to me. I wasn't interested in going to the academies when I was in high school. I wanted the full college experience, and you could just let your mind wander in that one. So I wanted all of that. And so when I was in Yuma pizza delivering, I did that for a couple of months, drove back to New York with my boyfriend at the time. He dropped me off in New York. He went to North Carolina where his family was. And then I picked up a job in Manhattan with Macmillan Publishing Company doing some data entry stuff that paid really, really, really well, still saving money. And I remember I was coming home from work. So I was taking the train, New York, you take the train, the bus. And I took the bus and I got back to Co-op City where I was at. And my mom was walking and she saw me and she had a letter in her hand and she handed it to me. So it was, the results. And I opened it up and it was like, congratulations, you made it into Officer Candidate School. So I was pretty excited about that because I knew, hey, the journey is beginning now. Like, heck yeah, let's go. So I was still working downtown in Manhattan. I had to do some things. I had to go down to Pensacola to do some medical workups. My job didn't like that too much, so they kind of didn't want me working there anymore. And I was like, I don't care. I got what I needed to get. And so I think I worked there for a couple of more weeks and then just went into the military of June of 1994. Yeah, I was going to say, well, between June and 1994 until you started flying the U-2, how long of a time frame was that? So you go to Officer Candidate School, it's 90 days, so it's 3 months. So June, you have to be commissioned as an officer. So I got commissioned in September of 94 and then went right to flight school. So we start with what was called at that time Aviation Pre-Flight Indoctrination, or API. It's a different name now, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but basically it's a 5-week course of a lot of physical activity classes like aerodynamics, weather, engines, other classes, and then they do all the water and land survival stuff. So really, to me, this was a test of time management, how well you are in the water. And, this would have tried out a lot of people who were weak in the pool, who couldn't swim. If you were not good academically, it would weed you out. And then after that, 5 weeks, I finished that. And then I was, my next step was to go to flight school. So it took, like I said, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And then I was in Corpus Christi, Texas to start flight school. So it was pretty quick.
Yeah, that's really quick.
Yeah, some people it's a little longer.
So all that work that you had put in, definitely, I mean, it really prepped you, and you were like, you just moved right on into flight school.
Yes, the aviation pre-flight indoctrination, I didn't have any setbacks, didn't roll. I knew there was going to be a lot of pool time. You swim a mile in your flight suit. You do a lot of the dunker test. You do the chamber flights at 25,000 feet. I had known all that, so I knew swimming wasn't my strongest, especially treading and drown proofing, which we have to do. So I did a lot of practice on my own in a pool at my apartment complex in a flight suit. So, and if there was extra time available at the end of the day of school, you go in the pool. So, my whole goal was to not roll for anything, not get set back. The academics, it wasn't that hard, from my standpoint. And it was just about time management. We had a good study group. We had a good group of people. So we all cooperated to graduate.
So do you have any, I've probably asked this a lot, but any favorite aircraft to fly?
Oh, wow. Favorite aircraft. So it's like apples and oranges. So I've grown up in the Navy flying helicopters. I was a fixed wing instructor. And then I went over to the Air Force in 2004 flying U-2s, fighter trainer jets. And so it's like apple and oranges. I love helicopters because of the fact that you can hover, fly backwards. You can zip through, low level very quickly. It's fun. But I love the U-2 because it's high altitude. I love the fact that I'm in a pressure suit. I love the fact that I can see the curvature of the earth doing a great mission. But I love flying in the T-38, doing over the top, doing, just a lot of things. So it's pretty neat.
Different reasons for different aircraft. That totally makes sense.
Oh, yeah. But I love it.
So lately you've been doing a lot of, I'm going to kind of switch a little bit, but lately you've been doing a lot of speaking and writing, actually. So you wrote a book. It's a memoir, and it's called Shatter the Sky. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Shatter the Sky, what going to the stratosphere taught me about self-worth, sacrifice, and discipline. So I wrote this book after I did the reality show Tough as Nails, actually during that whole process when it aired. And it's about a girl from the Bronx, from a single-parent household that has this dream to become an astronaut, to explore the stars at 7, and how I went on that journey. And it goes through it's broken up into 4 parts. So it goes through my Navy career, my Air Force career, and then the next mission afterwards with family and all that. So it teaches in my journey some life lessons for leadership, life lessons for people who maybe now we call it imposter syndrome. And it talks about just how to navigate those things. So I talk about it in these teaching points through my life lessons. And I break it up into small vignettes. So for all you people who love Instagram and TikTok, dare I say, you can read it a quick section and put it down and then get back to it. So it's, it has a little bit of humor. There's some profanity because I am a sailor. And so, but it makes everything funny. It's a fun book. It's designed to motivate you, inspire you, and let you know that you're not alone. And for those people out there that think that they're in a situation that they can't get out of, that's what it's about. Like, I want to show you, yes, you can. So
I like what you talked about, the motivation. And you have on your website a whole motivation lab, which we'll also link down there in the notes. And what it is it is a bunch of clips of you talking about different topics, like don't be put in a box, do the hard thing first. I think you talked about your daughter when you were talking to, when you did do the hard things first. But can you tell us Maybe some more about that part of what you've created on your website.
Yeah, so if you go to merrilltengesdal.com, I do have a motivational lab. So it is about just daily things to get people going. Do the hard things first. I know a lot of people like that. For those who don't know, after Tough as Nails aired, season 2, during that time we were fostering a 6-year-old girl, which we adopted almost a year later. So as my daughter, she just comes with a different bag of stuff, and some of it's trauma and some of it is just habits that she developed by the time she was 6 of it's just different. So a lot of times I have to remind her that to get to the good stuff, you got to do hard things. And that's a lesson she is going to be learning for a very long time. So she found her way into a family that we're motivating, we're focused, and we're kind of high performers. Even my biological son, who's a year and a half older than her, we all have this, this drive, this intrinsic motivation, this drive. And I think she's learning to build that. So it's just interesting. So a lot of things that I do for the Motivation Lab, maybe one day she'll see and just remember, because right now I think she doesn't like it too much and there's a lot of tears, but we'll get there.
So I agree. My kids too. It just, you have to just keep on at it, and then when I'm hoping when they're, 20 or something, they'll be like, oh, I remember when mom said this, or she was teaching me this, or she showed me this. It may not be comfortable right now.
It's not. It definitely isn't. I think more parents, and I'm not getting into anyone's business about how they should parent, but it's easy to be hard and let off on the gas a little bit than to try to just floor it when you don't see them doing something. It's hard to get that rev up time. So my kids, my husband and I, we have military boundaries and we don't mess around. And we do it. I have to remind my kids, like, hey, we do this because we love you. We do this because we get on you to say thank you, please, and be polite and recognize your elders and not think that this is TikTok and you can do whatever you want to say, because people notice those things. People who are older notice those things. And you will find that as you act that way, people will be more inclined to listen to you, maybe not let you slide on some things, but give you that opportunity that other kids that I see around our neighborhood that are not as respectful, they don't get that. They get the get off my lawn, but they see my kids and they're like, oh, come here. And then they'll give me feedback. Oh, your kid's so polite. Oh, they help with this. Oh, they're so kind. And I like that. And I tell them, like, hey, it's working. You might not know it right now and you might get upset, but trust me, this is a good thing.
That's so true. It's funny because I was talking to my kids too. I said, you know what, you're going to stand out. Unfortunately, right now, I think you stand out when you're nice to people, when you have good customer service, or you're polite. And so that's what's going to separate you from the rest of the people. If you're in a job interview, someone just being polite, learning how to write, learning how to text older people, like that's a different thing too. I talk to them about texting older people to add some punctuation in there. They tease me about that all the time. But
I gotta tell a story. My son, he does not have a cell phone. So he's 11. He'll be 12 in November. So no cell phone. No, he has access to a cell phone. We have a house phone, which is a cell phone, which he uses, but he does not have his own individual one. And until he's 13. And I told him the rules are you got to be 13 and you have to sit with me and watch Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Oh, Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, so to learn about what the purpose of social media is. And so he still texts with his friends, but I remember in the beginning when he started, he was texting one of his friends who is a young lady, and he would just be like, why are you not speaking? Like he would just talk in this very terse words. And I'm like, bro. And he's like, what? I go, you don't text like that. You start out with, hi, how are you? How are you doing today? Do you have a moment to talk? And so it was funny that I had to teach him a little etiquette to texting. And then when he started doing that, and then she would reply, he's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you can't come in here like a bull in the china shop. No one's going to talk to you.
Right?
I said, you're being awkward.
Yeah, being awkward. That's a big thing with the kids. Yes, being awkward. Yep. It's totally true. Yep.
So parents out there, even though they say we're old, you got to teach them how to text. And being nice, being kind goes a long way. And they do theater. So I think, theater kids they're the good kind of weird. And they're in this, the theater that we go to, it's a space where they build character. So they build kind kids and they reinforce the stuff we do at home. So it's kind of fun. And they, when they look at adults or they speak to adults, they look at them in their eyes. They actually carry conversations, and other adults are like, wow, they're not scared. I go, no, my son just had a young lead role in front of hundreds of people. He's not scared.
That's awesome. There's some really great programs out there, which makes me kind of want to ask, what you do some charity work, but what programs do you think are important for our youth that, maybe even ones that are focused on aviation? How do we get more kids into aviation?
Yeah. So, the big thing is a lot of STEM programs, right? Especially for young girls. For some reason, around the age of 12, girls just totally go away from the STEM type programs and they go into other fields. I have a friend of mine. She's actually the head of the department, the welding department. I call her a friend because she's a single parent, single mom with a daughter. She's phenomenal in welding, but her daughter is the same age as my son, and she's interested in robotics. And I was talking to her one day, and I was like, "How do you like it?" And I was talking to her mom, and she loves it, but she says the boys are really mean.
Oh no!
And so I always wondered, because she's going to be 12. I'm like, maybe this is one of the reasons why girls go away, because they're all about preteens and boys and girls together. A whole, you take a whole bunch of awkwardness and immaturity, and you get boys being boys.
Yeah, that's the middle school range, and I think middle school is like just a difficult time for kiddos.
It's like Lord of the Flies, as I've seen for my kids. Lord of the Flies, like it's man. My kids come home and say some wild stuff, and to talk to them and to help them, ask them questions to help them navigate through the challenges with their friends and stuff. It's difficult. I'm glad we have passed that phase. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed as well.
But I mean, yeah, so my interest is to talk to kids in this age about STEM. I talk to them about what I've flown. I've talked to them about the military as an option and not, and most people say, school, the military, for kids who don't know what they want, they could just join the military. No, we have standards. Like, you can't be rolling up in there with a whole host of medical issues or anxiety issues and think you're going to go in the military and they're going to fix you. No, they actually pick at the weaknesses that you have to make you stronger and to make you more responsible, because you're dealing with life, multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar aircraft, equipment in different places. You're representing the United States. So I really talk to kids just about how cool it is to fly, how fun it is to fly, how, there were times that I wasn't my best self, but I came back. I talk about mentorship. I talk about finding people who walk in the same direction as you, regardless of race, ethnicity, and who can help you and open doors for you and give you opportunities. And so that's big for me. About 2 weeks ago, I spoke in Sacramento. A friend of mine has, her name is Darcy Brewer. She runs the Capital City Air Show. So the California Capital Air Show that was just here last weekend. She runs that. But if she calls me up and says, Merrill, I need you to talk to a group of kids they're doing this summer thing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm there. What time? When do you need it? Let's go. So I do that as much as possible. In this area, I've talked to many school districts. I just talk to kids. So I try to do that. If I'm doing a speaking engagement in another state, I really will call my agent and say, are there any other areas that need to be talked to, any other schools that would be open to me coming for 20 minutes and just reaching out to kids. So I'm all about that. I'm all about sharing my message, because I think a lot of kids in underserved communities need to hear more stories to understand that they're not alone and that people can get out of that situation. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but
that's great. And I want to pick one of the pieces. I know you said multiple great things, but one of those things is, I think you were saying, your goal can very well be the military. Like, you can use, it doesn't have to be just because you have nothing else to do. The military can be definitely a pathway, obviously, because we've seen you do it, a pathway towards the ultimate, whatever ultimate goal you might have. And I feel like that parallels a little bit about what I'm always trying to talk to my little niche of the industry, which is schedulers and dispatchers. Most people use this type of a job as I fell into it. It wasn't what I was aiming for. And I also would love to tell people that being a scheduler or dispatcher can be your ultimate goal. It's a cool career. I'll admit, probably not as cool as flying the U-2, but it is a cool career, and you can use it as your goal. Like, you can say, that's what I'd like to be, because there's a lot of opportunity in this area as well.
Right. So we talked about, you weren't there for the speech that I gave, but I talked about, number one, when I was asked to come to speak to the schedulers and dispatchers, I did a little research, and I was diving into that world, because I didn't know as a military person, your scheduler and your dispatchers per se are part of maintenance and operations. So, sometimes I would be like a detachment operations officer or work as a scheduler or do some stuff in the military. So it's not a separate entity. But as I started diving into it and talking to some people, talking to a good friend of mine who did about, 200, 500 hours of training, I was like, holy crap, you guys do a lot. Like my mind, it was one of these areas wow, this is impressive. I was impressed at the fact, first of all, coming before the pilot, and then staying after and getting another pilot on and making sure weather and everything is checked. You really let the pilot just come in and fly and just do their thing, look cool. And it just reminds me like the U-2, as a U-2 pilot, I come in, I look cool, pressure suit and everything. But there's all these people behind me, on the side of me, in front of me, that are doing all these wonderful things so I can look cool. And that's how I look at the schedules and dispatchers. Much respect. The only way, every day is a break-even day. If the pilot makes it everywhere, but the moment something goes wrong, you're gonna get yelled at, and you're not gonna be appreciated as much. So. I was very happy to be able to say, as a pilot, I appreciate everything that you do. Even as a military pilot, just like I appreciated everything from the people who maintained my suits, the people who made sure my food was good, and did all these things. So I loved it. And then I looked at the future, and I said, I also spoke about the future of aviation is changing, and the role of the scheduler or dispatcher. I could see a timeline where, in just the way things are going, that one day it might just be the scheduler and dispatchers that are doing these things with automation and how things are going. So, people who go into this job and who are interested in saying, well, this is going to be a jump off point, you might be jumping off a train that's going to this great destination. And I wouldn't look at it like that. I would look at it like, how can I transform with this organization to be on the tip of the spear and do all these great things. So I think it's pretty cool.
That's a good point.
That's what I talked about a little bit, and I hope that hit home with people at the Schedulers and Dispatchers Conference. I mean, as a pilot, I don't have that much ego to say that everything is going to be a manned aircraft in the future. Like, I think we're starting to move away from that, and you can see it. You can see it happening. And those who are trying to dig their feet in, well, you might, dare I say, go the way of Kodak or IBM, or sometimes you have to. I talk about this too. You have to be the U-2. I think the reason why the U-2 has lasted for over 50 years, 60 years is because its ability to adapt as the environment changed. And so, you have systems that you can put on there that keep the U-2 just relevant, and people still want it. You change the avionics system, people still want it. You change the way the sensors work. You add different sensors, people want it. And that's adaptability, I've been saying recently, equals into longevity of what you do. So that's just food for thought for all those people out there thinking that this is a jump off point. Maybe stay in the game and do some stuff adjacent to it and see how you can help propel it along the way.
I love that. Adaptability is longevity. I totally agree. Yep. We all have to adapt. Every company has to adapt. The ones that stay in business a long time, or like the U-2 that stays in service a long time. Yeah, adaptability definitely, it keeps you in the game.
Yes, and you could take that model to anything. If you want to say, dare I say, DEI, and people saying certain things, and DEI is all about just finding the right people and giving opportunity to those in underserved communities, finding those talents. We're not talking about changing the status of where the level of your expertise needs to be or the level of knowledge. It's giving opportunity to people who may not have it. Talk about your community. Maybe other people will think about it. Can you imagine? I always imagine like kids who are good on phones and good at doing social media and programming their posts. Can you imagine them scheduling things? Like this is not a big jump, but they don't know it exists.
Yes, they don't know it exists. And those underserved communities, so I live in a really small rural agricultural town and stuff. So aviation, especially business aviation, or even I'd say military aviation, is almost, the knowledge about it is almost non-existent. People just don't know it exists. So I just love that you're out there and you're trying to spread the word and tell more people about these opportunities. And that's awesome. Merrill, you really are an inspiration. And whether your kids tell you that now, they may not just because of their age, but you give them another 5 or 10 years and they're going to be like, man, we are so lucky to have had you as a role model, both you and your husband.
I hope so, but if not, it's okay. I always tell them, it's okay. You don't care. Like you'll care in a few years when I give you your social security card and you got to make your own money.
That's right. That's right. Totally true. Oh my gosh, Mel, it has been wonderful speaking with you, and literally what an inspiration. I'd love to, I'm going to pop your website, etc. down on the bottom in the notes. Everybody who's listening, you have to go listen to her motivation lab. It's awesome. She has some great, a newsletter that you put out. There is a blog that you have that's really great. You have all sorts of stuff. So we'll pop all of those in the bottom.
Sign up for my LinkedIn newsletter.
I just did.
Did you? Yay!
Yeah, I did. I just did.
When I have some time, I'm gonna do a fitness lab because I'm a personal trainer, so I train people. So I got to get the right camera and I got to get the right area. I'm working on trying to get some space so I could start doing that. But I'm gonna do a fitness lab. So we're going to do a lot of walking and working out. So it'll be good.
That's great. All right. Well, I'll follow you for that too, because as soon as this baby's born, I'm going to need all sorts of fitness to get back in back in shape.
Well, it depends on if you have C-section, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. All right. So I'm due at the end of, I'm hoping natural. No, I'm aiming to have this baby at home here and everything. I just really would like to try that. Yes. I've had a C-section.
You want to try?
I've had a VBAC, and now, yes, I'm going to aim to stay home for this one. So I will But either way, 6 weeks sounds pretty good. I will thank you. Yes. We'll see.
My fingers are crossed. I'm like, wow.
We'll see. But yeah, I will definitely look for that fitness update. That sounds really cool. Merrill, if people wanted to find you, maybe contact you if they had a question about what you've done throughout your life, how would they find you other than maybe your website? I'm sure it's on there too.
Yeah, you could you can email me at mt@merryltengesdal.com. The easiest way that most people reach out, first of all, you can either go to Instagram. I'm DragonLady788. DM me. Like it's probably the quickest, or LinkedIn Merryl Tengesdal and send me a message. I'm pretty quick. If you go on Facebook, it may take me a day or two. And then you can also go on YouTube and subscribe to my channel.
Merrill, thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again, Merrill.